I heard the minister saying there were a lot of human waste. I'm thinking like I've seen a lot of boats around, and some places there's not a place where to actually relieve themselves.
Yes.
Then what happens if someone is actually pressed and they need to pass urine? So now the question that I ask myself, then where do they go?
And also issuing unnecessary licenses. Most of these to my booth, you go there, most of them have got a permit. So you'd find every time there's a trigger, central government moves in, a soldier like that, they clean the place, they hand it over to the council brings the vendors back. I think that's where the problem is.
Now it is to reflect in our mind. Government has got the capacity to keep this place clean. So if we have the capacity, why don't you continue with this? So the trigger now comes in at the point where if we are going to go with that, because what is important in this case is changing the mindset of citizens.
Most of these individuals did not apply, like usually you're supposed to apply for just like a normal business at a local level. In fact, they're the ones who are supposed to issue you a slot where you're supposed to do your trading from.
And we need to have designated places. Yes. If we say, let's say it's going to be found in all bus stops. So I even know to say if I start off from home and the only place I can find is at a bus stop.
Yes. Yes.
Do they have a restroom just within that area?
Amongst the things that have been trending this week, gentlemen, is we're hosting the African Union. I don't know, is it a conference or a meeting? That's Summit. Yeah. And then prior to that, there was a cleanup in the streets. There's an electronic money transfer that has been trending in Zambia and in Africa, which is mobile money. Yeah. And most people have found a source of employment through that. So they run these booths where you do the transaction from. So anything that was along the Great East Road and the Central Business District was cleared up and cleaned out. And people have mixed feelings about it. People that don't run the businesses were like, I know it was just a few, that's one way of cleaning up the city. And others are, no, these people have no employment, and how do you affect people who are crying all over the place? What are your thoughts on that?
So maybe I can go first. So yeah, it is a mixed feeling, I can agree. There are instances where, especially the time the economy is not doing so well, and there is a lot of pressure. And if someone has found a livelihood or a source of income and being disturbed, it's a very painful thing. So we are seeing a lot of people who are stranded now. One, those to my booth costed money to put them there.
And I was saying it comes around 10,000 each.
Yes, those are quite expensive to erect. And they're different. There are those metallic ones. There are those that are poly, which are more expensive, and those were also destroyed.
Yes.
I think that investment, we are not going to recover it. I don't know how government is going to assist to maybe refund that part of capital. And we are also living in a situation where the Ukraine war is the effects are being felt.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are rumors of is it economic recession that is likely to hit the ground.
Yes. And then there's also issues of wanting to onboard everyone on the financial inclusion in terms of people learning how to bank. I think there are a lot of people that are now learning how to bank through mobile.
It's the most popular.
Yes, especially in these densely populated areas. So I think that didn't
sit well
with me, and actually those who have invested in that business. It's a very big approach. That's demolished and
but I get. Do you see where the complication comes in? Why government did not engage most of these traders? Because I was listening to Nkombo's explanation. He gave a speech and he had interaction with them. Most of these individuals did not apply, like usually you're supposed to apply for just like a normal business at a local government. In fact, they're the ones who are supposed to issue you a slot where you're supposed to do your trading from. But because of the prior system doing the patriotic front, most of the people that were running the streets were thugs and cadres. So you find that council or anybody did not do anything in terms of allocating business trading areas. It was difficult to know who's where and what is what. So that format of just cleaning up and then doing the damage control afterwards, I think it was ideal. Because if they had caught to say, oh, traders who do in this business, a number of people would have shown up and it would have been difficult to just coordinate. So you clean up, then the real people, they know, I know, never is always trading a person. You cannot trade
that even compromises the thing. So, listen, the streets in question are known. These other booths were not tempered with. The copper belt booths were not tempered. Yes. They only cleaned the Greatest Road from the airport and the CBD. So there, it's even easier. You do an engagement area. You tell them to say, this is what our intentions are. Please, during this time, we are going to remove all these booths and we'll get your names and we'll allocate you a place where you should trade from. So, one, if the owner has got the capacity, they can even approach nicely their booth and wait for them to be allocated. And then those who are stubborn, obviously, the government could have done what they have done. Then
it would have led to the same effect.
But there's a thing that is going on around. Is it because of this, the AU summit, the AU media summit?
Basically.
Because if you're going to tell me the thing that has happened, it has just happened in Lusaka, and it's got a specific area that is the greatest,
which affects the conference location.
Yes, which affects the conference location, and also the route which our visitors and the delegates that are using.
So aesthetically, they needed to clean it up.
They needed to clean it up. So is this cleanup genuine, or it's a cleanup that is going to? Because I'm informed to say this has been on the table of the minister or with the council for as far as last year, somewhere September, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it has been there, but how coincident that it has to happen at the time when the AU summit is taking place? And how come that it's happening at the time of the street or the road that leads to the place where the summit is taking place, and also part of the CBD?
Yeah, so basically this is the issue we have with the government. So in terms of cleaning up this booth and allocating them, the paper has been, those issues has been there even during the PF and all that. So nothing has been done and no intention. You know, politicians, they don't want Yes, they don't want to affect people who vote for them.
Yes.
In as much as it's a good thing to do, they always tread carefully.
Yes.
But this one, purely, initially they denied to say the AU didn't contribute, but afterwards they came out because people queried to say, no, why is it that only the Greatest Road, the airport route, and the CBD are affected? Then they came out to say, yeah, actually, that is part of it. And if you've moved from the airport, Greatest Road, even the card have been freshly marked with those white and black markings and all the way to the so basically. So I think those are some of the issues we've got with our government. We are always reactive to something. We are not proactive. So we knew about the summit. Yes, to say that it would be hosted.
Before even the conference was,
yes,
they said all this built.
Yes, it would be hosted here. But you start preparing for it 3 days before the summit.
But as you earlier stated, politics and doing the right thing is a thin line to trade. You get the idea, right?
Yeah.
You know, the right thing is to do is this, but how do the voters react? That matters a lot because that affects your job. Because eventually, if I feel offended by your actions, I'm not going to vote for you next time. So this is one thing I've learned about Gary Nkombo. Gary Nkombo has been clear and concise about what he wants to do in that ministry. For example, he wants to clean up the street vending, and he has tried efforts on that. But because he always receives backlash, then he pulls back. he's been clear about cleaning up the same CBD. But then again, how do you balance it out with the voters? Because so you cannot say this intention was just happened overnight. This was just by the way to say, I mean, you just have to do it and have the effect. And it's one of those things where you do damage and then you push the other one with the
control. You do some damage control.
Employing 30,000 teachers and right away. That's the only way they're going to have any impact because the UPND came in government with a lot of promises. So if eventually they come out without fulfilling a lot of things. One other thing is the cleanup at the Forest 27, those mansions that have been done there. Gary was quite clear to say
demolish
those things.
Especially that they have demolished them booth. So the booth people now, so we want to see if justice is just for the
poor or even the rich.
The rich, yeah.
So now you can see where it puts Guy Nkombo in particular in a very dicey position because he's the person that is responsible for means particularly, and he only issued that statement to say Tizaka Pwang and stuff like that. So he has to leave out.
It's like it was a dare by the president. Like, okay, you said this, I'm going to put you responsible for that, so that you don't point your finger and see if you can do it. But anyway, you see, before you begin to divert very much, there's one thing that I always say, and I like to start seeing things from a very low level. So I'm looking at my country right now. So if we are able to clean the street, the greatest road, and the route that goes to the airport, and the CBD, then I'm asking myself, like, okay, so as a country, we have the capacity to make this work.
Yes.
The cleanliness is actually the government has got the capacity. So now the question that I ask myself is, but what makes us not to do it?
It's not politically.
One, it is not politically due. But at the end of it all, there are certain decisions deliberate that the politicians or whoever is in government needs to take. And not every decision that will be popular and will sit well with things. Now, hold on before you say that. I look at it to be a good thing also.
The cleanup?
The cleanup, yes. I look at it to be a good thing. Okay, let's just take it at a household level. You see, if you have visitors that you normally don't have or usually don't come to visit you, even at home, the cleanness that you have at home at that particular time changes. So we can't blame the government at this particular time.
Yeah.
Even if we say, okay, it is done, this and that, the cleanup was just necessary.
Yes.
If the same people that are complaining about the booth, if we go to their homes and they say, no, maybe the minister is coming to visit you, do you think the cleanness that is there? Because I remember when we were young, we used to have, we used to have, every house has got those special plates, special cups, keep please, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that is happening now. If we can be practiced at the household level. What is wrong with us practicing?
Let me just emphasize the point that you said. The president has attended these summits elsewhere. So there's a standard that has been raised. For example, there are certain countries that would say, let's say Congo. Congo has got this picture to say it's a poverty distributed nation. But when it hosts such a thing, you can sense the level of elegance and perfection that comes out.
Everywhere. It doesn't matter. Everywhere around the world.
That can execute it to that level. And Zambia is known for, in terms of this and that picture, you get the idea.
No, it's because you see what happens.
This becomes to ask this question. We know that we need to clean up, and then there's that issue to say it's not politically. So you are saying something to do with being politically IQ.
Yes.
So we know countries like Rwanda, Kagame, the cleanliness that is there.
Yes.
Kigali when they are hosting, and even before they host, generally that is a clean city.
Yes.
So how has he managed? Because he's also a politician. He's got ministers who are politicians. Wait, before you add, we've also got Botswana. Botswana, the cleanliness and Namibia.
Yes.
Even the throwing of papers, they stop the bus from wherever and take you back
to where you do, yes.
Until you pick those papers that you threw out of the window. But here, why are politicians scared to do the right thing, just to appease the voters? I think that's where we normally miss it. We want to wait for an event like this to clean up, And yet we know the right thing to do is to start now the cleaning.
You see, I don't really want to go into politics, but I want to give a history of little things that have happened. I want to take you back a little bit, if you remember. There was a time Honorable Sylvia Massey was Minister of Local Government. After her, we had the late Teta Machine. If you remember that time, the city started becoming clean. The time, when Sylvia Massey was the minister. Keep Lusaka clean. That was a campaign, Keep Lusaka clean. It was in the time of the MMD. During Manawasa, before Manawasa, Pastor. So at that particular time, the city started becoming clean, and it was actually getting in the minds of people not to be throwing paper anyhow and litter, any other thing. And if we continued at that trajectory, you know these things of politicians who, when I come in office, I want to undo everything the other person.
That's another one.
And we went back. Then there was a time again, take you a little bit back. There was a time, Korea. You know, there's a time where Korea was, it was like everywhere. So there was cleaning of markets, this and that. Soldiers came into the streets. Soldiers came in the streets, and it was clean. I remember one time entering town, and it was clean. You could not throw that, and it continued for some time. So the issue that happens, there's always a trigger. I'm not trying to say why now. There's always a starting point. So if this time, remember what I said earlier. So the trigger now is the AU summit. But now it is to reflect in our mind. Government has got the capacity to keep this place clean. So if we have the capacity, why don't you continue with this? So the trigger now comes in at the point where if we are going to go with that, because what is important in this case is changing the mindset of citizens, because that deity and other things that find themselves on the street, it's because of who? The citizens. So if the citizens are actually educated, it dawns on them like this is the way of life now. The streets will be kept clean. And government needs to come up with a system. Systems have been formulated before. Council needs to implement. Council needs to also up their game in terms of cleanliness, because again, council is the one that has been let down. Because we do this process, and we say this is going to be a dumping site. Council needs to collect, but you find they are not collecting, and this litter begins to find itself in wrong places.
And also issuing unnecessary licenses. Most of these to my booth, you go there, most of them have got a permit. So you'd find every time there's a trigger, central government moves in, a soldier like that, they clean the place, they hand it over to the council brings the vendors back. I think that's where the problem is. And then we've also got councils that are not coordinated. So you've seen Lusaka's cleaned, Ndola hasn't, Kitwe hasn't. There are all these councils in the years. So you saw Lusaka City Council yesterday abolished the Bonanza machines. Yes, they have banned those. So they were appealing to other councils to emulate. So Lusaka, it's Lusaka, Central, Munari here, but you'd find that our place, the Chongo area, those are, and council jurisdiction. Yes, Lusaka council can't come there to come and others those who are doing.
So
I think that's where we've got.
This is where the challenge comes in, because you know when we look at it from the best way it is coming from, we need to look at it also to on the top where it's actually. Formulation of policies is very important, and when a policy is formed for local government, it will be distributed to all local councils in this country. So what should affect Lusaka, should affect Ndola, should affect Livingstone, should affect Wapula, should affect Western Province, should affect Northwestern, and all other places, Southern Province and the rest. So now, what we are trying to say here is, is there a policy?
Those are policies formed by the
central government.
But councils have also got their own chambers where they pass what we call, is it bylaws?
Yes.
Those are jurisdiction, city-based. So what Lusaka city implements it can't.
It won't be lubricated in
You know,
Nkombo.
but even unless they adopt it.
I am not. I do not know about, but I want to believe even when making bylaws,
That's why
you don't make bylaws just from nowhere. You make bylaws
Yes.
guided by the central government.
Yes.
So central government needs to have a clear roadmap on how to guide to make these bylaws. Quite alright, I agree. Because again, the certain bylaw that you have in Lusaka might not be the bylaw, might not apply to Kitwe or in the Western Province. Okay?
Yeah.
So there are certain bylaws that you make based on the culture of people around, the way of doing things around that place. So now the central government needs to say, if we say the booth, we need to have one design of booth, and we need to have designated places.
Yes.
If we say, let's say it's going to be found in all bus stops. So I even know to say if I start off from home, the only place I can find is at the bus stop.
Yes.
Okay? And if we tell ourselves it's going to be found maybe at a certain maybe shopping mall, it will be at the shopping mall. Even when I start off from home, I know it will be found at this place, not anyhow.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a system and a systematic, even when we have maybe a visitors or what, that we be able to say, okay, there's a system, oh, these things are only found, but why do you, visitors always ask, why do you, oh, here, our booth, this money, mobile money booth, they are found at the bus stop, and this is the reason, okay, that's a smart move to do. Okay, because you're not to say people are, I'm not saying that's how it's supposed to be, but we need to formulate.
Yeah.
And now this needs to affect everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be dotted anywhere, anyhow. You understand that
Yes.
part? You know, as long as it's going to be maybe along the main road. So it's not supposed to be like that. Then I want to come into the issue of the issue I said, I was talking about the cholera. The city was clean. Vendors were taken out and no one was there. So if we continued that, we should have learned something out of that time.
Yeah.
Okay, we had seen the past president going to clean with the soldiers. We had seen ministers going to clean with the soldiers. The drainages, all the drainages were unblocked. People were not throwing anyhow with getting scared of the soldiers to say no, they were actually punish
more
you.
than what
Yeah,
you
We saw 2019, 2020, we had no cholera because of that.
2018,
Yes.
Yes, in Lusaka.
In
Because
Lusaka.
every year, then
It was
season,
the rain, like
it's
the-
a yes, you
So, yeah.
expect to have such.
Exactly my point. So if we saw that worked, why don't we make it a policy? Why don't we make a policy? If a policy is there, who's supposed to implement?
That's where the issue
Now,
is.
if the implementation is not done, we need to task we need to know these are things that are supposed to be the public domain. And we need to know who is not doing their job. And if we form that, everyone will know, like, okay, there's this thing here. I even know who to ask, why are we not having this?
It's not happening.
Another thing, the system of government or the local government system, the councillors. These are people that monitor their local areas.
Yeah.
They're very few. I've seen this guy from Kamwara. I think I see him to be very active.
I don't want to throw beans at
Yeah, the one who cleans up, he has this and that. Sometimes, you know, there's garbage, they call him. I think he was in a meeting for clean up because there was something that, some stuff that council needed to do. I think there was a time council was not collecting garbage at a certain area. He protested by actually going to take them. So if all local, or the councillors are going to be that proactive, the council, the local government itself will become active in things because they do not want. Then on top of that, the MPs need to supplement and to actually boost the works of these councillors if they are going to work together. Because they're the ones that come now to parliament. Go and report to parliament. Bring that motion in parliament to say, in my constituency, this is the report that we have with evidence. Then the local government will be forced now to like, no, you need to do this, you are not doing it. But I think that for me that is a major problem we have.
So far, what I've picked from this conversation is that it's not clear cut how everyone feels. It's a miscut of feelings.
It is, but I still stand my point where they could have engaged them prior, and you know it could have been the best.
It would have led to something more.
No, it's not. You know, now there's also issue of MTN, Airtel. You know those guys. you know, they leverage on their technology. So usually the booth owner is supposed to have their own money, whatever. So the only thing they do here is to make sure they use that technology, and they make very little.
Yes,
so that's the time now to engage the Airtel companies, Zamtel companies. You know, those guys are always trading in those Tuma booth. It's during hot season, it's very hot. During cold season, there are no bathrooms. How do we engage these companies to come and bring up conditions that are due as they are partners in that business? You know, and also the other thing is the standard of the Tuma booth. We should have at least a standard of a design. Not my boxy, you know, those I think that's
so
why
that's what you feel the engagement was supposed to be about.
Yes, we could have engaged the companies, the mobile companies area, engage those in question. We know the streets that we are looking at. Then we also, even after what has happened, I think those mobile companies should be engaged now. Say,
no, there's been engagement since.
Yes,
There's been an engagement.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. How
But you
do
know,
we help?
there's a
these
question that
people
Owen
to
has
attract
made me to think about. I heard the minister saying there were a lot of human waste. And
Yeah, as you said,
yes. Now, you know what is I'm thinking right now is like, but you know, I'm thinking like I've seen a lot of booths around, and some places there's not a place where to actually relieve themselves.
Yes.
Then what happens if someone is actually pressed and they need to pass urine?
And we not see them eat shishim and all that.
Proper.
So now, the question that I ask myself, then where do they go? So that is another aspect that we need to know.
Mhm.
It needs to be in a designated places.
Yes.
Do they have a restroom just within that area? Because you think, I'm thinking along Greatest Road, apart from those maybe that are near closer to, maybe there's some kind of a filling station, some kind of a complex of shops and stuff like that. But those that are like by the bus stop,
Yeah.
Munga uyoba pamunali hapa zaenda pa Kristo what you go to this hotel that's
Okay.
Coca-Cola.
yes.
Yeah. So apart from that, also there are security of these
Because
Yeah, even
the abduction
that abduction of that should not be found at all.
Yes, no. So
But Pamela,
yes, those are some of the things that we need to look at as we are, you know, as they have partnered with these mobile companies.
There's a lot that needs to be looked at. I know people are looked at how people have been inconvenienced and stuff like that. There's an issue of these booths. Some of them actually, you've seen the safety of them when it is raining.
Even
Some of them are not really
they
put in. They're just going to put like a booth which can even be easily be lifted and moved. And you know, we've seen in the terms of rain.
When
and
it rains,
stuff.
there is like a downpour.
Yeah.
And the safety that they have there in terms of
You know,
that is
yeah.
metallic. There's even lightning and something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of them are actually under the lines of
Some
this.
hold as much as 50 and cash in those. So that's a very big risk to them, you know. Armed robbers would come and threaten them, you know, thieves and
Anyway,
all those are some of
this is so diverse. We're not going to draw to a conclusion. But so far, what I would like to pick from the audience is that we've shared our thoughts or what you feel about this. I would like to get it from you guys. What do you think is the best alternative for the government? Leave a suggestion. Because we have a lot of government officials that look at our channel and they might get your suggestion as the most ideal one because they are not the monopoly of knowledge. In as much as they are in those offices, knowledge is within the public domain. So share your thoughts and share it with a friend. Catch you next time.